Well, thank you very much for having me today. The work that I'm going to present to you was conducted under the CGIAR French Institute's collaboration on food environments, which began in 2020. This review, How Do Food Safety Concerns Drive Consumer Behaviors and Diets in Low and Middle Income Countries, was one of our first major projects. It stems from a lot of what has been discussed today about lack of knowledge on consumer behaviors. We wanted to look at food safety and dietary behaviors as their major contributors to the global burden of disease. And there's a paucity of evidence in low middle income countries, especially when compared to high income settings. Evidence on the links between food safety concerns and consumer behavior in low middle income countries had not been previously synthesized. So we thought it was a good idea to undertake this project. Our primary review question revolved around whether food safety concerns influence consumer behaviors and diets in low middle income countries. We also wanted to know if consumers are substituting perceived unsafe foods with less nutritious food. In addition, it's very interesting to ask as well if consumers are purchasing unsafe food due to lack of affordable and available alternatives. So lots of components of the food environment. So we wanted, sorry about that. We hypothesized that food safety concerns could lead to negative impacts on consumer behavior and in turn change diet quality. So like everyone else, we used existing frameworks such as the HLP 2017, FAO 2016, and a lot of other theories to conceptualize how different types of food safety exposure might impact specifically these consumer behaviors and diets. As none of the existing frameworks on their own captured food safety exposure and consumer diets sufficiently, we decided to create our own. It looks like this. We were really influenced by the socio-ecological model from Story et al. 2008, and also from a more recent 2020 framework of OC Quasi. So we fit the food safety factors within the different levels of influence. So you can see the individual, social, physical, and macro. And then the outcomes of the food safety exposure were categorized into different dietary behaviors, which we can refer to as DBs perhaps from now on. Consumer behaviors with acquisition, preparation, storage, and meal practices. And then on the other column, we really wanted to look at diets in terms of quantity and quality to help answer our review question. I'll take you through these a bit more in the results. So we use the PECO model, so population exposure, comparison, and outcome. We had adults and adolescents from age 10 to 65 as our consumers, our primary consumers. We looked at a bunch of different food safety terms as the exposure. In terms of comparison, we used the definition of the World Bank to classify countries as low or middle income. And then we additionally stratified by upper middle or low middle, or low income, which is quite interesting in the results. And the outcomes were behaviors and diets. We included quantitative, qualitative, mixed methods, and gray literature in this systematic review. They're all considered for inclusion. And the proposal was registered in Prospero, the protocol, sorry. So this is our Prisma. We use PubMed, Scopus, PsycInfo, and Google Scholar. In total, 46 studies met the inclusion criteria for this review. There were many other studies that talked about food safety, but we only included studies that provided a clear link between food safety exposure and consumer behavior or dietary outcomes. So just to make that clear, something that was super interesting was studies were published between 2003 and 2020. 2021 even. We had one study that was published right at the beginning of the year. And this was interesting because there was no time limit, and over half of the studies were published after 2016, which really shows that there's much more interest and even growing understanding of the importance of the potential of this topic in research and improving health outcomes and nutrition outcomes.
You have 2 minutes to go.
Okay, thank you. The included studies spanned 20 countries, as you can all see here on the map. The majority of studies were in Africa and in East Asia and the Pacific region, with 6 respectively. And that was followed by Latin America and the Caribbean, South Asia, Europe, and Central Asia, and then the MENA region with only 1 study. If we break this down a little further, how I was saying, only 3 studies or 7% of the studies were found in low income settings or low income countries. So this just also was really interesting, considering that there is a lack of evidence overall, but the poorest countries have even less evidence coming out of them on this topic. Just moving on to share with you some of our findings. Food safety factors were observed as an influence on what consumers purchased, where consumers purchase food, eating out of home behaviors, food preparation and storage behaviors, nutritional quality of diets, in terms of consumption of nutritious foods, and also in terms of processed and packaged foods. So to share with you just a little bit of our highlights or a few examples from our study, consumers wanted to purchase fresh food. They were looking at expiration dates when there were packaged goods. There was also evidence that knowledge and experience, especially when there was a prior experience of foodborne disease, influence what consumers purchase. In Benin and Ethiopia, sorry about that. So fear that food was very unsafe led consumers to maybe smell or assess the appearance of the food before eating it. I won't have time to take you through all the quotes, but just one example was, I can't tell how safe food is when I buy it myself. When I go out with my grandparents, they take care of this and ask me to figure out whether something is within the expiration date. If I don't pay attention to expiration date, I may get sick. If I do this, at least I have some protection. So that's a really interesting. I'm going to skip this one just to show you the other ones.
Please, your time is up.
Oh, okay. Can I just finish this slide and then maybe this will be, okay. Yeah. And nutritional quality of diets. So the consumption of nutritious food, which if you remember was one of our questions in the review. We saw that so people were concerned with pesticides and chemical contaminants, especially with fruit and vegetable. So in Benin and Ethiopia, diet quality was influenced by the hygiene of the food outlet. And people were also concerned in China, Jamaica, Turkey about animal sourced foods. And this led participants to either reduce their consumption or even discontinue purchase of and consumption of some highly nutritious food items overall. And sorry, I don't have time to read you all the quotes, but hopefully you'll be able to access this afterwards. And so we did find that there's some evidence to support our questions, at least beginning the dialogue to try to answer these. Consumers have a lot of risk mitigation strategies, and we really wanted to look at potentials for policy. So we thought that upgrading urban market infrastructures, along with accompanied nutrition education could help lead to increased accessibility and appeal of foods that are very good and nutritious, enriched, and lower the appeal of processed or packaged foods. So thank you so much. Sorry I went over.